Stop. Before you scroll, someone younger than you is about to walk into your life and completely destroy every idea you had about love. Not destroy it like a wound. Destroy it like a wildfire clears dead wood, so something ancient and alive can finally grow. And the angels, they've already put this person on the path to your door. If this is landing somewhere in your chest right now, drop the word "ready" in the comments, because you are not watching this by accident. There is a moment, and you have felt it, even if you never named it, where something in you responds to another person before your thoughts have had time to form an opinion, before you know their last name, before you've decided if they fit your life, before your perfectly constructed checklist has been consulted. Something deeper than reason has already moved, already leaned forward, already said yes. This is not impulsivity. This is not naivety. This is the oldest intelligence you carry operating exactly as it was designed to. The mind is a brilliant instrument, but it is a late arrival to the experience of being human. It catalogues, it compares, it protects. And in doing so, it often builds elegant cages around the very things the soul came here to feel. It will cross-reference this new person against every wound you've survived and every disappointment you've catalogued, and it will find reasons for caution. It always does. That is its job. But the soul operates on a different frequency entirely. It does not read resumes. It reads resonance. It detects something in the quality of another person's presence, the way they carry their silence, the particular light behind their eyes, the feeling in your chest when they're near, and it registers a recognition so deep it almost feels like memory. This is why love at its truest is always slightly shocking. Not because it is irrational, but because it bypasses the rational layers entirely and speaks directly to something in you that existed long before your preferences, your patterns, and your pain. The soul has been waiting with more patience than you know. It did not panic through the wrong relationships. It did not lose faith in the difficult seasons. It simply continued recognizing what was false and holding space for what would eventually be true. When this younger person arrives, your mind will hesitate. Your soul will not. Trust the part of you that already knows. We have been taught to measure people in years, to stack their birthdays like evidence, as though the number of times someone has circled the sun determines the depth of what they carry inside. It is one of the most comfortable illusions the social world has ever constructed. This idea that wisdom accumulates strictly by calendar, that maturity is a function of chronology, and that love, to be legitimate, must arrive from someone whose age feels appropriately matched to yours. But go deeper than the surface of any human being, and the calendar disappears entirely. What you find underneath is not a date of birth. What you find is a pattern, a particular arrangement of longing, perception, wound, and wonder that has nothing to do with how many winters the body has endured. Some people live 7 decades and remain emotionally unformed, armored, unreachable. Others arrive in their 20s carrying a quality of presence so grounded, so luminous, so quietly knowing that to dismiss them on the basis of their youth is not wisdom. It is fear dressed in respectability. The psyche, that vast interior country you have been navigating your entire life, does not age the way skin ages. It deepens through experience, through suffering consciously met, through beauty honestly felt, through loss that was not run from but walked through with open eyes. A younger person who has met their darkness early, who has sat with their own complexity without looking away, carries more relational maturity than someone twice their age who has spent a lifetime avoiding the interior life entirely. This is what makes the love the angels are arranging so disorienting to the mind and so immediately recognizable to the soul. The soul does not see age. It sees depth. It sees whether someone is truly present, truly awake, truly capable of meeting you in the places where you are most honestly yourself. Age is the mask. What lives beneath it is what matters. And your soul has always known how to read faces without the mask. There is a part of you that you have never fully introduced to the world, a part that holds the rejected pieces, the needs you learned to silence, the desires you decided were too much, the softness you buried after it was met with hardness one too many times. This is not your weakness. This is your shadow. and it has been doing something in the dark that your conscious mind could not see and would not have permitted had it known. It has been preparing you. Every relationship that ended badly was not a detour from your path. It was the path. Every person who could not love you correctly was not a punishment the universe delivered carelessly. They were instruments, rough, sometimes brutal instruments, in the slow and necessary work of excavating who you actually are beneath who you learned to perform. The pain was real. The loss was real. But so was the excavation happening underneath it all. When someone fails to love you well, something in you that had been hiding steps slightly more into view. A need becomes visible that you had previously denied. A boundary announces itself through the very pain of its violation. A capacity for depth in you becomes undeniable precisely because the shallow version of love left you so profoundly unsatisfied. You could not have mapped these things through thought alone. You needed the lived experience of their absence to understand the shape of what you were truly seeking. This is the uncomfortable genius of the shadow's work. It does not operate through your preferences or your plans. It operates through what breaks you open, what refuses to let you stay comfortably numb, what keeps aching long after you decided you were over it. Every ache was information. Every unresolved longing was the soul refusing to pretend that a lesser version of love was sufficient. And now, having been broken open, having been stripped of certain illusions, having survived what you were certain at times you would not, you are no longer the same person who entered those earlier seasons. You are someone the right love can finally reach. There is something you have kept very quiet. Not hidden exactly, because it has never fully disappeared, but quieted, managed, held at a careful distance from your everyday presentation of yourself. It is the place in you that still longs to be held without having to earn it. The place that wants to be loved not for what you produce or how well you function, but simply for existing. The place that, despite everything you have built and everything you have survived, still carries a tenderness so undefended that you rarely let anyone close enough to see it. That place is not your weakness. That place is your signal. The universe does not respond to the version of you that has everything together. It responds to the version of you that is most honestly, most vulnerably, most completely itself. And the deepest part of what you carry, that longing for genuine contact, for love that does not require a performance, for someone who sees the unfinished and unpolished parts of you and does not look away, that longing is not a liability. It is a frequency. And frequencies, by their very nature, attract what matches them. This is why the healer does not come when you are most defended. They come when something in you has softened enough, been humbled enough, been made honest enough by living, to stop pretending the wound is not there. Armor is effective at keeping pain out, but it is equally effective at keeping love out. And at some point, usually after enough disappointment with the armored version of living, something in you makes a quiet and courageous decision to remain open anyway. That openness is not vulnerability in the weak sense. It is vulnerability in the most powerful sense. The willingness to be seen fully without the strategic editing that passes for intimacy in most relationships. It is the rarest offering one human being can make to another. And it calls something forward in whoever is meant to meet it. It gives the healer in that younger soul both the permission and the map to find exactly where you need to be found. You have a template. Everyone does. It was built quietly, without your conscious participation, assembled from early observations about what love looked like, what it felt like when it was present, what the absence of it taught you to expect. It was shaped by the first people who loved you and the first people who failed to. By stories you absorbed before you had the critical distance to question them. By patterns that repeated often enough to feel like inevitability rather than conditioning. This template lives below your preferences, below your type, below your checklist, and it has been running silently in the background of every romantic decision you have ever made. The problem is that the template was never designed to lead you toward what you need. It was designed to lead you toward what is familiar. And familiar is not always the same as good. Familiar is simply what the nervous system recognizes. It is the emotional equivalent of home, even when home was not always safe, even when home carried more pain than peace. The nervous system does not distinguish between familiar and nourishing and familiar and damaging. It simply signals recognition, and that signal feels deceptively like rightness, like chemistry, like fate. This is why the love the angels are arranging will not announce itself in the way you have been trained to expect. It will not arrive wearing the aesthetic of your past. It will not trigger the particular electricity you have previously mistaken for depth. It will feel different, quieter perhaps, or more certain, or strangely uncomplicated in a way that your conditioned mind will immediately find suspicious, because you have learned somewhere along the way to associate love with difficulty. But different is not wrong. Different is the whole point. The form this love arrives in is unfamiliar, precisely because everything familiar has already been tried and found insufficient. The soul grows tired of repetition disguised as passion. What is coming does not fit your template. It was never meant to. It was meant to finally and completely replace it. Somewhere inside you, beneath the competence and the composure, beneath the adult who handles things and meets deadlines and navigates the world with reasonable efficiency, there is a much younger version of you still waiting, not metaphorically waiting, actually waiting with the particular patience of something that has no other choice, that cannot leave, that can only remain in that interior room and hope that one day someone comes who finally speaks its language. This is the part of you that stopped believing at some precise and probably unremembered moment. Not all at once. It was never all at once. It happened in increments. A disappointment that was too large and too early. An absence that was never explained. A moment when you reached for connection and found instead distance, distraction, or dismissal. And the child inside you, not yet equipped with the philosophical tools to contextualize that pain, drew the only conclusion available to it at the time. That perhaps the magic was not real. That perhaps it was not quite enough. That perhaps love of the luminous and uncomplicated variety was something that happened to other people. You carried that conclusion forward. You dressed it in adult language, rationalized it into a kind of sophisticated realism, and built a life that was meaningful in many ways but quietly designed to never again reach quite that far, never again want quite that much, never again open quite that wide. And then this younger person arrives. And something extraordinary happens. They do not engage only with your adult self, the capable, constructed, carefully managed version you present to the world. Something in their energy reaches past all of that and finds the child in the interior room. And that child, who has been waiting with such impossible patience, feels for the first time in longer than you can calculate, genuinely and completely seen. This is why this love will move you in ways that feel disproportionate to their cause. It is not disproportionate, it is reaching a depth that has not been touched before. That child deserves to be met, and finally, they will be. There will be a moment you will later return to in your memory and marvel at how ordinary it seemed when it was happening. A Tuesday, perhaps, an unremarkable hour. A setting so mundane that had someone told you in advance that this was the moment everything was about to shift. You would not have believed them and would certainly not have dressed differently. Nothing in the external atmosphere will announce what is occurring. No music will swell. No light will change. The world will continue its indifferent and mechanical turning as though nothing significant is happening at all, and yet everything significant will be happening. Because the meeting that is coming was not assembled by accident. The particular arrangement of timing, location, circumstance, and internal readiness that will bring you and this younger soul into the same space at the same moment is not the random collision of unrelated particles. It is the visible surface of an invisible architecture that has been quietly constructing itself for longer than either of you has been paying attention. Think of how many decisions, detours, delays, and redirections had to occur in both of your lives to produce this precise intersection. Think of the jobs that were taken or left, the cities moved to or away from, the plans that fell through in ways that felt like failure but were in fact navigation. Every door that closed was closing for this reason. Every road that ended was ending so that the only remaining direction was the one that led here. This is what synchronicity actually is. Not magic in the supernatural sense, but the deep intelligence of life revealing its pattern at the moment you are finally positioned to receive it. It is the universe's way of confirming, through the language of timing, that what is occurring between you and this person is not accidental, not trivial, not something to be rationalized away with the comfortable vocabulary of coincidence. Coincidence asks nothing of you. Synchronicity asks everything. Your attention, your courage, your willingness to take seriously what the rational mind would prefer to dismiss. Do not dismiss this. It was arranged too carefully for that. Of all the obstacles that stand between you and this love, the most formidable will not come from the outside. It will not be the age difference, or the opinions of people watching from a comfortable distance, or the logistics of two lives learning to move in the same direction. Those are real, but they are manageable. The obstacle that has the genuine power to cost you this love is entirely interior, entirely self-constructed, and has been quietly rehearsing its sabotage for years without your full awareness. It is your deep and practiced difficulty with receiving. You have become extraordinarily good at giving, at being useful, dependable, present for others, generous with your energy and your time and your attention. This is not accidental. Giving feels safe because it keeps you in control of the transaction. When you give, you determine the terms. You maintain the higher ground. You never have to sit in the exposed and uncomfortable position of needing something from another person and trusting them enough to actually provide it. Receiving requires a completely different kind of courage. It requires you to stay still while someone moves toward you with tenderness, without deflecting it with humor, without immediately reciprocating to neutralize the intimacy, without deciding preemptively that you are too complicated or too damaged or too far past some imaginary expiration date to deserve what is being offered. It requires you to look at someone who is choosing you, freely, clearly, without confusion, and resist the oldest voice inside you that says this cannot possibly be real, that it will be withdrawn, that you should protect yourself by leaving before you can be left. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is the accumulated scar tissue of every time love failed you, speaking as though the past is the only possible future. Becoming worthy of receiving does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming honest enough to admit you want this, humble enough to stop pretending you don't need it, and brave enough to remain present when something real finally arrives. The love is coming. The only question is whether you will let it in.